Just a couple of upsets in week 3. The Browns over the Packers. The Falcons go down to the Carolina Panthers, but the odds are you're probably still alive and kicking in your survivor pool after 3 weeks. And today we're going to dive into myself, Erik Beimfohr, and Rob Coakley, what to do in week 4. Who have you maybe selected already, and how do you approach a week 4 slate, which is maybe a little more wide open, but some very appealing spots? Do we want to save some of the really good teams for the future? Is now the time to use them? We're going to get into all that here today on Spike Week. All right, Rob, we are on to week 4 in survivor pools, and the fish food keeps on surviving and moving on in our survivor pools. I will say, I just want to get it out of the way.
Explain yourself.
Because you've already been, I feel like every time I talk to you for the course of the last multiple days since Sunday, I had a wonderful Sunday, right? Had a nice DFS hit and all that kind of stuff. And the first thing that comes to my mind, knowing I'm going to talk to you, and probably to your mind, is I can't believe you took the chalk Seahawks in Survivor on Sunday. But I did. We talked last week. I thought week 3 was one of the most fascinating survivor weeks I can remember. You could have taken the Bills, and now that was more of a sweat if somebody took the Bills on Thursday than they probably would have thought. But we talked about how it's possible they come in under-owned, and maybe you should take them, right? But okay, you say I didn't. I want to hold on, because I do. I want to hold on to the Bills for about as long as I can. And then all this chaos breaks out. Jaden Daniels isn't playing. And we did in the whole if then kind of analysis last week, where it was okay, if Daniels plays and Fields doesn't, and blah, 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 here's what we'll do. And it all went to shit. Nothing. Tyrod's playing, but Daniels isn't. And right, all this different stuff. And so I was like, look, I've been pretty off the beaten path so far. I'm just taking Seattle. I know this goes against every fiber of how I like to play this game. I think Seattle's quite good and actually would be interested in holding on to them, but I just couldn't find something I was really comfortable with. I think the Chiefs were an alternative that sort of arose later in the week, but I didn't feel ultimately that comfortable with the Bucs, even against the Jets. And I think that results seemed to dictate that was probably wise to not be confident in the, but there just wasn't anything. In one of my home leagues, I took the Falcons, which is good Lord. So it was just, I don't even know that I don't know what was ultimately the right or wrong thing. That the Seahawks did come in as the most popular team. I ate the chalk. But it was a weird one, dude. Week 3 was a bizarre week in the NFL.
I've been busting your balls about the Seahawks, but I don't even think they ended up being a terrible pick. I'm actually more upset that the Bills weren't chalk, and we'll talk about why in a little bit. The Seahawks came in at 26% owned as the highest owned team in my pool. That's still
36
had over
for me. 36 for me.
Little 36% in yours.
Mm-hmm.
There was about 3,600 people in my pool at the time.
This is smaller, so that was probably part of it, right? Just a handful of picks.
Yeah,
and I mean, we have multiple teams and stuff. But anyway, that can show you the difference. I just wanted to say the difference between a 300-person pool versus one with thousands left. Stuff.
Yeah, but we'll see the impact on that. The big loss that knocked people out of the pool that I'm in, 17% of people took the Packers, which I think and I'm just gonna not to just pat ourselves on the back. Mr. Perfect style here, throw in the towel. But I think we said on last week's show, if I remember correctly, I didn't go back and watch, but I think we said the Browns were going to beat somebody, and we wouldn't be shocked if it was the Packers.
Correct.
Just their defense is too good. Sad, especially as a home game. They were in Cleveland. I was just too murky, and I'd rather have saved Green Bay. But I think that's the ebbs and flows of a survivor, is setting those rules that I like to set and understanding that you definitely don't want to break them if you can make it a thing to not break them, but understanding that sometimes you have to. And I did break the rule. I took a road team last week, but I pivoted to the Chiefs, and they were 9% owned in my big pool. And I feel really good about that, because Chiefs ain't that good, man. They ain't Chiefs from 2 years ago. So getting the Chiefs off the table feels good because I feel like they're going to hurt somebody later in the season for sure.
Oh, there's going to be a week where just because of how things played out, everybody's used the Bills and the Ravens, right, and the Eagles and all that kind of stuff, and the Chiefs are going to be chalk against some not that mediocre team or something, and they're going to lose for sure. Like I can just see the writing is on the wall, just like the Browns beating one of these teams was on the wall. We definitely talked about that one. I'll just quickly run down some ownership in mine. It's probably pretty similar for most of these, right? But Seattle was 36%, Buffalo was 19%, Green Bay was 12% at third, and then Kansas City and Tampa were both 9%. So there was your top 5 in my pool. So
Tampa
I
was
do
a
think
lot more on mine.
interesting.
They were 16% versus the 9% Chiefs. So, and this is a bigger pool, but yeah, they were a little bit more owned. That's why I was sitting there rooting for the Jets at the end of that game, because that would have been about 33% of the pool just knocked out with those two teams.
Yep. So about hold on just quickly, 17% total of the pool that I'm in lost. So it would have been, like you said, it would have been closer to 30 had the Jets held on. That game was nuts, by the way. What's up? What since when does every field goal get blocked nowadays in the NFL?
Just all of them. Just the thing now.
What the heck? Maybe McVay will learn to stop settling for field goals now, since every time they kick one, it gets blocked. But well, that remains to be seen. Anything else from week 3 before we head into week 4?
No, I think that I just want to tease it again. Just remember that some of the stuff that happens in a week, even prior, can really impact what happens the following week. And I think you're going to see that cascade when we start talking through these teams, specifically one, and we'll get into it pretty early on this slate.
Good call. I like it. So quickly, we're recording this on a Wednesday so we can get it out before Thursday night football each week. Is anything about this Thursday night football game particularly appealing to you, or should we sort of move on? It is a divisional matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. I got nothing particularly exciting about this game. I'm not all that interested in watching, and I'm definitely not interested in picking either of these teams. And just like you, I have picked the Cardinals in most of mine, and I've picked the Seahawks in both of mine. So I don't have that many options for this game anyway.
No, this is a game that you just easily breeze by. This is only a consideration if you have one or both left, and it's like week 17 or 18, and you're like just grasping at straws, and maybe somebody went down for one of these teams. Like this is an easy, just let's see what the next game is.
So we do have the early morning game on Sunday, Steelers and Vikings, and then a fully loaded slate before we start to get into a bunch of buys. Where do you want to start? Where has your brain gone immediately on the week 4 slate?
So if we're just going through these games sort of in order as displayed, Vikings Steelers, we're adding more variables to this game. That's already a close game. Just that's an easy skip for me. I don't see why we would even talk about Eagles Bucks this week with the Eagles on the road in Tampa. The Bucks are a bit scrappy. Like, they're a good
Bucks have
team.
given the Eagles fits, by the way. Todd Bowles just says, Jalen Hurts, please beat me passing. And he's like the kid playing Madden, just hitting engage 8 every single time is Todd Bowles against Hurts.
Yeah, so unless you have something to add to that, I can skip that real quick. I think we start talking here at the Chargers Giants. And again, I don't like West Coast traveling east, especially for 1:00 games. The Chargers are good, man. They're a good football team. They're a fun football team. And the Giants are starting a rookie quarterback, and they're not particularly good to begin with. That's why they're starting a rookie quarterback. So I think they're on the table. I'm not going to say they're my favorite pick of the week. And I think they might end up, I'm not going to say they're going to be the chalk by any means, but I think they're going to be more heavily picked than I would like for a spot like that. And they are the Chargers. Let's not forget who the Chargers are. They are the team in 2016 that lost to the Cleveland Browns when the Browns couldn't win a game. So there's voodoo going on there. We're getting close to October. They're on the plate, but they might not get eaten first, is what I will say.
They weren't the first thing you put on the plate, but you saw them and you got intrigued, right? So
Yeah.
you're like, well, just in case I'm still hungry by the time I get to that part. I agree. I totally agree. I think they have to be on the table, and it's always just important to note. I think this is only week 4, but there are going to be only so many spots each individual person has, or each entry has, that are like viable, and some of those viable spots you may have already selected. Right. This is why already starting in week 4, we were like hammering in those first few weeks where everybody, like, I got a buddy that texted me last week. Well, Bills seem like an easy one in Survivor. And I was like, sure, it's like an easy win, but just think to week 12 or whatever, when you've used a bunch of teams already. Wouldn't it be nice to have the Bills, against the Dolphins next time, or against some other crap, right? The Panthers or whoever it is, have them available to you later. And that's just how I ultimately feel about the Chargers. Is I think they're kind of in that echelon of team, and I want to, if at all possible, I want to save that echelon of team for as long as I can.
Yeah, and we have bye weeks coming up too, so
let's
not forget about that. That point brings us to the Bills at home against the Saints. And this is why I wish that the Bills were 40 to 45% owned last week. Because if they were a heavy, chalky team last week, I think it's open computer, click Bills, close computer. Right? Like, it's just so
on to
easy.
week 5. Yep.
Yeah.
And let's move on to week 5. Yeah.
But they weren't. So there is that possibility. Like, they're still on my short list of teams for the week, but they're not a slam dunk pick in the aspect that, like, dude, I want to take them against the Saints here at home. It lines up, but about 60%. And this is where you should start using your tools on these websites and looking at the availability report and seeing how many people do have teams like the Bills left to see if it makes sense to take them or not. But if you're in a small pool and you didn't take the Bills last week, probably a great week to take them. If you're in a large pool, question becomes a little bit more looming at that point.
Totally.
So, anything to add for Bills Saints?
Nope. I still, like I said, my adding to like kind of like your rules and a lot of the things we've talked about here over the course of the first month, just hammering home the, like, if at all possible, saving the absolute best teams in the NFL for as long as you can. There's nuance to that. Like you said, if everybody had already used the Bills last week, that means that they also just don't have them available later. So if I can just then take a free pass on into week 5, that's great. That's not the case here now. And so I know they're going to win, right? Like, it would take some Herculean, absurd effort, right? The Saints don't, spoiler alert, the Saints defense ain't the Browns defense. So, like, they don't have that thing to, like, give them the upset card over one of these teams. So, yes, the Bills are going to win. But just because a team is going to win doesn't mean they're the best team to pick in Survivor. And I know that that's a bizarre, a weird thing. It's very ass backwards, but it is what it is. And that's how I feel about them. I do think there's some other appealing spots.
Yeah, it's a hard concept for some people to get by.
Just take the team that's going to win by 30. Why? What are you talking about?
Right.
That's why I took Seattle.
Commanders at Falcons. I don't even think we need to talk. In my opinion, there's nothing to talk about there. It's just not a game I'm trying to pick in Survivor right now.
No. Jane Daniels back at practice for whatever that's worth.
Browns at Lions. Now, we did just sing the praises of the Browns. I don't think this is a bad spot for the Lions in particular. Like, as much as I like the Browns defense, Detroit is the one negative for Detroit is, although they won the game Monday night, they unloaded the bag Monday night, and they're, they get one less day to recover, but they are at home in Detroit. It's still early enough in the season. I think that they kind of just roll the Browns here. I don't think the Browns offense is going to have the firepower to do anything to help that Browns defense. But I don't know if this is the time I want to use the Lions. But I can be convinced that this is the right time to take the Lions.
On the table, I think though the Browns are just amongst the bad teams. They're the one I want to target the least.
Yes.
Because they're going to be in all, like, I know that the Ravens blew them out in week 2, but it was kind of the offense turning it over and get like they Derrick Henry got nowhere. The Lamar threw some passing touchdowns, and DeAndre Hopkins did his typical insane couple of catches that he does right every single week, but they were not exactly cooking on offense. Even the Ravens, right, weren't cooking. So like I this is going to be one of those games where, if I know it's a home game, I think the Lions are going to win. I think they should win fairly easily. But if Goff shows up and throws a couple picks and Myles Garrett gets to him, right, strip sack fumble, next thing you know, it's like, oh shit, it's 17-10 heading into the fourth quarter, and you're like, you can't figure it out. But like the Lions offense is better than the Packers last week, so I think they're going to have a little bit more success. But people need to just realize the Browns defense is really that, like, it really is that good at this moment, at least.
I agree. And now it's time to have the uncomfortable talks, because there's 2 games here that we really have to discuss. And especially for the pools, I know my pool doesn't do this yet, but I do know that there's a lot of pools on Splash Sports that this is a 2-pick week. You have to take 2 teams. And we have 2 games here that we have the Texans at home against the Titans. Let's start there. I'm considering the Texans. However, this is where game theory starts to come into things. A lot of people are already starting to consider the Texans. So
Seahawks ass pick. This is the most Seahawks pick of
and
all
I
time.
think that's what's kind of happening here, is that if you have to take 2 teams, the rules kind of go out the window a little bit more there. Like you're going to have to probably take something that's chalky. And if that's the Texans, then, go with God at that point. But I don't know. I wanted, like, the Texas stood out as I looked at the slate, I think Sunday night, and I'm already looking around and reading stuff and listening to stuff. And I hear the Texans getting sort of perched up that this is the week to take them because they're playing Tennessee. And I want no part of a chalky Houston Texans team by any means. No, thank you. That's where they differ from the Seahawks, where, like, I was fine with taking a slightly chalky Seahawks team. I didn't want an overwhelming chalky Seahawks team. No, thank you. If we're getting 15 to 20% Houston Texans, hard pass for me. I'd rather just take that Buffalo advance to week 5 and we figure it out from there.
I'm on the same page. How I always like to think about it is, when I open it up and I think about, like, okay, what is not one of the big dogs, one of the big favorites that I would like just right. No, I'm not pulling up win probabilities. We just pull up the slate and we look, and all right, let's exclude the Bills Saints. Okay, let's exclude that one, right? Let's exclude the Ravens, whatever. Let's exclude XYZ. What's one of those Seahawks-ish matchups, right? And I look at the very first one that I jumped to this week was, Texans at home against the Titans, right? The Titans stink, Texans defense, and they're at home. Fine, right? That's the first. And so as soon as, so we saw with the Seahawks last week, as soon as that thing jumps out there, immediately to me, I think, there are people dumber than me. There are people smarter than me. But there are a lot of people plenty smart enough to see the same thing that I'm seeing with the Houston Texans, and it's not going to go overlooked. No one wants to use Houston after this start, right? Like, that's not a team you want to hold on to, but the Titans are a worse team, at least by our perception. But I just can't think of a team I'm less excited to play as chalk than this Houston Texans team in a divisional matchup. That, like, I think they're better than the Titans. If we look back in 2 months and that's not the case, would I be shocked? No, I would not be shocked. So there's just some other spots that I view somewhat similarly from, like, a win probability perspective. And I think this one's the one that's going to generate some steam. What does that steam look like? I'm not sure as we sit here today, but I think it's the kind of shining example of, you see 70, like, it's a team nobody wants, and they're 77% to win a home game against a bad team. Just, like, jumps off the screen. And, like, but those are the really, really vulnerable, chalky teams.
Yeah. Here's your survivor tip of the week. if you're able to make your pick before kickoff on Sunday, try to find a pool that locks on like Thursday night or something and see what the percentages are in that one. They don't really alter too much unless there's some crazy breaking news.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's in a survivor pool that locks on Thursday, so that's great for me because I just look at her shit. And then I know a lot of people that we talk to look at the Circa survivor pool, which is a heavy buy-in tournament that I
Mm-hmm.
just learned about this year. And I think they lock on Saturday, which would break my brain that there's a Saturday lock. Like I hate that
Mm-hmm.
personally. But
Mm-hmm.
they
You don't
they
even really get the full injury. It's like you kind of get more injury news, but you don't get the whole kit and caboodle. It's like yeah, like it really is a mind fuck for sure.
yeah, and then making sure you get your pick in, right? Like
Yeah.
that's always been the problem with the Thursday pools. If you ever watch a Thursday pool, a lot of people throughout this year will forget to get a pick in before Thursday night
Got
kickoff.
me.
And
Got me on Thursday. It happens, you
yeah,
know. It's one of the luckily it's not one of the like bigger monetary investments I've made, but I'm just not used to. I'm not used to playing in the Thursday lock pool, so I understand why someone would miss it. I see that you have a team selected here, and you're also wearing a hat of said team on this show. Tell the people about Patriots Panthers.
this is where we get uncomfortable, right? Like this is where we start looking at a team. They're not getting talked about this week. They're in a similar position to the Texans, where they're not. Excuse me, they're not going to be a team that people want to pick this week, like this season. But they're at home. They're against what we consider an inferior opponent at this point in time. They're not going to get a better spot than this. So low ownership, hopefully. I just at the moment I have the Patriots selected. It makes me want to vomit. You hear my body trying to. But if we're gonna win with the Patriots, it feels like this is the week to do it. Like we wanted it week 1, and maybe they just end my season completely. I have to like rebuy into a week 5 on next week. But I think these are the spots we want. We want to win these spots where we have an edge with a winner. We can keep Buffalo, we can keep Detroit. Everyone was heavy on Houston. We don't have to take Houston at all in this thing. That's the other thing we got to remember. Like we have to pick a lot of teams. We still don't got to pick every
Yep.
team.
Right.
Right. And Houston, like it's whatever. I'd rather get this spot out of the way now with a healthy Patriots team that looks like they might have to physically turn the corner and start playing players that are better than other players.
You mean stop playing the guys who fumble every time they touch the
Yeah.
football? That would be nice.
So at the moment, and this is not a lock for me yet by any means, but at the moment, Patriots are my 1. And then like the Bills are my 1B at this point in time that I'm looking at. And that's going to really dictate. It's really going to be dictated by ownership stuff that I see. But I think if the Patriots are going to be low owned going into this weekend, kind of a slam dunk to take them here. I mean, please push back if you have any pushback at all.
I just have a couple of other teams I want to talk about that I would say are not drawing as much interest as well, that I feel a little bit better about them as a team than I feel about the Patriots. I will just note, as of this recording, Tedero and McMillan for the Carolina Panthers did not practice. This is just Wednesday. Guys don't practice on Wednesday all the fucking time. So like it could absolutely mean nothing. I'm just noting those things to be like, hey, what, like, right? Just like last week, we were like, I would love to give you the answer today on Wednesday as we record this, but like, I don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to play. I don't know if Justin Fields is going to play. There's so much that we didn't know. It's not quite to that level this week. Sadly, the injuries we got last week were just very severe. And so we know that those guys are not playing, right? Najee and co, but, the Patriots are, I think you see it on your screen. The Texans are 77% to win this game from just a betting market win probability. And the Patriots are, let's call it 71. That's close enough And one team is going to be 2% and the other team is going to be, 1 or 2%. And the other team is maybe going to be the most popular pick of the week. We'll see about the Bills, like you said. So it's like that's a difficult one to be, piling on the Texans. The team that the Texans lost to last week now goes on the road to go to San Francisco on the West Coast. And San Francisco, I don't believe in this Jaguars team. They beat those Panthers that you talked about, and they had a really, frankly, kind of lucky walk-off win against the Texans last week. The Jags defense is not that good, and their offense has not gotten going yet. I don't know if it's Shane Waldron, offense pass game coordinator. I don't know if it's Liam Cohen was a fraud. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence sucks. I don't know if Brian Thomas Jr. went loosey with the football on us with the rookie season, and he's really just not that good. I don't know, but they're not playing very well right now. The San Francisco 49ers are 3-0, but honestly, not a team I'm like in love with, like if I don't have them moving forward. I don't think we like ever want to take them in a divisional matchup. Right? Like, are we ever? We don't want to take them against the Rams. We don't want to take them against the Seahawks. They got lucky to beat the Seahawks in week 1. And the Cardinals, we just saw them. Like, that doesn't feel like a comfortable game to me. How many spots are there going to be for the 49ers that we want to use? They just also lost Nick Bosa, their best defensive player, tore his ACL in the game on Sunday, which is bad for this matchup, but it's even worse for the long term, right? It's just like, I don't love them. I don't know if Brock Purdy is going to play. Of course, it makes it worse with Mac Jones. I just think that is a spot against a Jaguars team that I don't believe in, with a team that like is definitely multiple tiers above the Texans and the Patriots, but they are not in that Chargers, Bills, Ravens, right? They're not in the Eagles tier. They're not in the group with those guys. They're not even in the group with the Rams in their own division. So they're very much on the board for me. I do think, despite the fact the Colts look like world beaters, I think you could look at the Rams, but Monday Night Football is the last one I wanted to bring up, because the Bengals are straight dead man walking, dude. Like, I don't know. I took the Bengals against those Jaguars in week 2 on a team. I don't know how that won. The Bengals, it's over. I think the team's like soul is crushed from the Burrow stuff. They'll be better than they were last week, but on the road at Denver is never a place you want to play. Denver also, I don't think, is a team that we're like going to be super jazzed up to use very often. Like, that we thought week 1 when we did this show that like Denver was like, oh, they're going to be popular and maybe we want to hang on to them. They're fine, but they're kind of in that 49ers tier to me of like, I don't know if I'm ever going to feel very comfortable clicking them. And I do feel very comfortable clicking them against this version of the Cincinnati Bengals, right? If Joe Burrow was playing, it would be a very different conversation. But with Jake Browning at the helm and the way their offensive line is playing at home for Denver, they stand out to me as well.
Yeah, they were a team that I was looking at as well. Just to hit the other few teams we didn't talk about, Colts, Rams does not need to be discussed. You're not taking either side of that game, in my opinion. Ravens, Chiefs, I wouldn't touch personally.
No.
Bears,
you can bet the Ravens. I think the Ravens are coming for fucking blood in this game after going 1-2, but that doesn't mean I want to take them in Survivor.
Yeah, especially when they're playing at Arrowhead.
Mm-hmm.
Bears at Raiders is just like, that's a coin flip of all coin flips. Packers at Cowboys, it's the same thing with the Packers this week. I think the Packers win. Their ownership might be a little bit lower this week, so if like you wanted to play that aspect, but I just want Green Bay at Lambeau. Like, I'd rather have a home game for Green Bay. And then there's the Jets Dolphins, which, yeah, good luck picking that game at this point. I mean, we would like the Jets, but it's in Miami. It's a divisional game. Like, there's better spots at this point in time.
I think I'm going to bet similarly to the Ravens. I think I'm going to bet the Jets. I don't want to pick them in Survivor, right? They're like 2-point underdogs on the road, and like, I think I'll just take any dog. Again, if Miami's favored, I'd just give me the dog in the betting markets, but that doesn't mean I want to pick them to win a Survivor pool.
Yeah. So for me, I'll just give my top 3 for the week currently, subject to change. It's Patriots, it's Bills, and I think you might have got me on Broncos for 3. I don't know if I can do 49ers. I feel like the comptroller for the team at this point is playing defensive tackle and defensive end. So like,
well, then what's Mac? If the comptroller is playing the offensive line, what's their quarter? What's he? The secretary?
he's the assistant to the comptroller.
The assistant to the. Oh shoot, that's good. He's the traveling salesman
Yeah.
of the team.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
I get it though. I do get it because the 49ers you're gonna have to stare down the barrel of that gun at some point of the 49ers,
Yeah.
and you're probably gonna
The
have to pick
injuries
them.
are not going to stop. If there's anything we've learned
Yeah.
about the 49ers, if you ever want to use them, the sooner the better, because there's going to be more guys on injured reserve in a few months.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I get it from that perspective. But for now, it's gonna be Patriots for me, and that I'm gonna be checking the ownership in some of these other pools and make that final point. And just to reiterate, I think that this show, we're not looking to give you a pick on Wednesday. We're looking to show you how to think about the slate and how to evaluate a survivor pool rather than be like, just take this team. So I think that's important to notate.
Totally agree. I will add, like, part of why I picked Seattle last week was actually a shout out to Jason Lisk from Team Rankings and Pool Genius, and over there we exchanged a couple emails talking about doing some content and stuff. And he was like, "I'm interested in your thought process. I saw you guys are doing the show and all that." He's like, "You have like some of the highest, like basically expected value left on the teams you have left, right? Whereas other people in this pool had taken Ravens and Broncos, right? And these good teams, and I had swung on Bengals and and these Jaguars and Patriot, right? And I took in a bunch of garbage teams so far, and so part of me was what drove some when I had all this angst about last week's slate. I was like, I think I'm just going to take Seattle in this spot. For me, it is Denver is kind of my clear standout at this point as it stands right now. My expectation is that I'll probably be taking the Broncos, but exactly like what you said, I think the final point to hammer home is if you can, and anybody can find this kind of stuff, you can come hop in our Discord, right? Which of course there is a link in the description if you're a premium subscriber to Spike Week. And if you're not, there's just a $5 option to come hang out and join us in the Discord. We could share, right, some of the ownership that we see from like Thursday locks or Saturday locks or whatever. And you can see, okay, what's the Texans, right? What does the Texans ownership look like?
Mm-hmm.
What does the Bills ownership look like? And like, what do some of these pivots look like? And I think that's going to ultimately, like, if the Broncos come in higher than I'm expecting, right? People pivot off the Texans to the Broncos or something like that, then that's going to change my course of action. But similar to last week, I want to take the Broncos. I feel more confident that I will be taking the Broncos, but exactly like what you said, I think like we don't know what the injury report and stuff's going to, like, I didn't know that Jaden Daniels wasn't going to play last week. We didn't know some of those things. So things will change, and just being on the lookout for what ownership and stuff looks like, because we're still very much in the let's we always want to be like fading chalk if we can, but right now when there's really vulnerable chalk, I think like Houston and that kind of stuff, it's even more advantageous that we can hold on to some teams, or not hold on to the Texans, but just get off of a team that they're 0-3. They're not very good. They just lost to that Jaguars team. This isn't a very good team that I want to be taking when 40% of my pool is taking them.
Yeah. And just two last quick points to help back you up on the Broncos. They are, in my pool at least, the second most used team already in this pool.
I forgot.
So they've been used. So there's 1,655 people out of 2,490 in my pool that can still use Denver. And
because they were chalk week one. They were chalk week one against Tennessee. Yeah.
Right. And then there's the Bills, who are 1,669 out of 2,490. So if the Bills come in as super chalk between, like, if you see them at like 45%, 40% or something this week of ownership, just remember that like 25% of the pool has already used them. And to the point Eric was making earlier, that becomes mega leverage with the Bills going forward if you can find a great spot for them. So those are some of the game theory things to think about as you're doing a survivor pool. Sometimes you do just got to lock in the Bills, take it on to week 5, and sometimes you look down the barrel of the New England Patriots playing the Carolina Panthers at home, 30 minutes from your house, and you hope they don't ruin your life. So.
Yes. 100%. This is a pretty awesome. So I don't know if the games will be awesome, considering we're discussing a lot of bad teams here. We've been discussing so far, but I think from a Survivor perspective, it's a really, really fun slate to think through all the different angles. Obviously, your pool and who you've selected play a lot into that as well. So that'll do it here for week 4. Good luck in your Survivor pools. Come join us in the Discord. Drop a comment, like all that different stuff. And we will see you guys in week 5. After week 5 comes after 4. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.